Testing for all those that are in playback. Can you now hear me? All right. Sorry. All that analysis went to the dumpster. Anyways, welcome. Let's try that again, other than you just make believe whatever I was saying before. Welcome to the Sox Machine Watch Party on playback.tv/Sox Machine. We have overcame those technical difficulties. I am Josh Nelson. And again, we're leading up to Cleveland being on the clock, number one overall. And just like your classic Microsoft Teams uh, with your business, me talking on mute for 5 minutes. Again, if you just joined us on playback.tv/Sox Machine, you can adjust the volume in the screen in the bottom left corner. As the managing editor of SoxMachine.com, Jim Margulis joins me right now. And Jim, as I was explaining, as ESPN right now is setting the stage, something, at least in the sports book wise, in the sports betting world, has swung greatly to suggest that the Cleveland Guardians' hand has finally been played. This morning, Travis Bazzana, the Oregon State second baseman, was the big favorite to go first overall. Now, JJ Weatherholt went from plus 170 odds to minus 210. And for those that know anything about sports betting, you know that is a huge change in odds. So it seems that the sports books are very certain that the Cleveland Guardians will not be taking Travis Bazzana first overall. That would be, they're suggesting that they take JJ Weatherholt, the shortstop from West Virginia. Now, the ripple effect of that. Cincinnati will then all of a sudden at pick number 2 get a chance to select the number 1 or number 2 prospect in this draft class, and the Sox Machine top 100, many publications top 100. The rumor is that they prefer Charlie Condon over Travis Bazzana, as Commissioner Rob Manfred now is going to the podium to get everything kicked off in Fort Worth, Texas, and Cleveland will officially be on the clock. Colorado, it suggests that it's either Condon or Chase Burns, the right-handed pitcher from Wake Forest, meaning that Travis Bazzana this morning goes from the favorite to be selected first overall, drops into the lap of the Oakland Athletics at pick number 4. Will Oakland take Travis Bazzana? That is the expectation, but for any White Sox fan, for what you are watching early in this draft, if you are hoping that the Aussie, Travis Bazzana, falls to the White Sox at pick number 5, that hope is alive. There is a heartbeat. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition, but right now, I still think, Jim, that for the White Sox war room, if I was in that war room, my expectation is that this decision is going to be between Florida first baseman, left-handed pitcher Jack Caglione, or National High School Player of the Year Connor Griffin. I think that's what the decision will be for the White Sox at pick number 5. But I haven't gotten a chance to ask you, sir, as we get ready for the draft war room, who are you hoping the White Sox take 5th overall?
All right. Well, first of all, let's see if my microphone works before I start talking. So can everybody hear me just fine?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure before I start going in, given that we've had technical difficulties on my side recently. It's funny, like I've been watching the draft rankings shake out, the mock drafts and so forth. Like, keep hoping like Bazzana or Condon get to the White Sox, because I would feel like one of those two players I would understand why, or and also I'd understand why. And if I'm looking back on it and trying to figure out like why did this draft pick fail, which is how I've grown to process White Sox draft picks, because like Nick Madrigal, like should have understood why that was a higher risk than everybody let on at the time. Andrew Vaughn, like you can understand the lack of a fallback if he doesn't become a plus hitter right out of the gate. So when I look at like White Sox first round picks, I try to figure out the most likely way they'd fail and then work backwards and try to figure out like what's the likelihood of that happening. Should we have all expected it, or should we feel foolish for it happening, or is it just bad luck and just the mortality of players that like a guy like Andrew Vaughn or Spencer Torkelson to go outside the White Sox don't really click the way their bats suggested they should. So like Bazzana and Condon were the most lock-like picks to me in terms of like, oh, I get why the White Sox picked them, and I'd be surprised if they failed. Like Weatherholt, the hamstring issue, that kind of knocked him a tier below them because just the White Sox had bad luck with leg injuries. So why would you invite another one? Uh, Unfortunately, like no matter who gets taken early, it seems like neither Condon nor Bazzana will be on the board when the White Sox pick them. So it's kind of all the same to me. Like Caglione, it makes sense why you wouldn't want to see the White Sox pick a first baseman with the first pick. We just had that and it wasn't fun. Griffin, like the very long development arc and the White Sox not having a whole track record of success when it comes to helping guys make swing changes. But if you were somehow able to unlock that, you'd understand the temptation to pick him. But I'm leaning towards Caglione just because the White Sox need bats and they'll need bats anywhere. Like by the time he's ready to go, Jimenez is out. Vaughn probably out unless somehow he like manages to produce well, but not that well enough to where the White Sox stick with him. But there's a whole lot of need for lefty bat. There's a whole lot of need for lefty bats anywhere, and probably sooner rather than later, just because the pitching is there. Like the White Sox should have enough pitching to where they need bats of any kind. And so that's why I'm leaning towards him, but I'm not thrilled about it. Like it feels like a case where every pick with the White Sox could choose feels fraught. And I'm more hoping that somebody like rounds 2 through 20 ends up being like the best pick the White Sox choose, just because it feels like that kind of draft where the first round is kind of disappointing, but there are guys elsewhere that might actually end up developing for them.
Is that the prospects themselves, or is that does that your skepticism lean towards the White Sox recent stretch of player development?
I think it's more the draft this time because like Mike Shirley's actually done a decent job when it comes to first overall picks, like getting them to be top 20 overall prospects, even though they're not picking top of the first round. So like, I don't feel like I want to knock him too much for saying like, oh, he doesn't know a first round talent. Cause so even Garrett Crochet, like at the time, it seemed like a median first round pick, just hoping for any kind of certainty in a very uncertain world. But with Crochet panning out, like he's been really good in the first round. So I'm not knocking him necessarily, but it does feel like, when it comes to not just the White Sox, but teams overall, like when they're getting past the first round, it becomes a matter of finding players who are talented, but maybe not in the best programs that haven't been able to unlock either like a couple extra miles of velocity as a pitcher, or, maybe it's a matter of like them not facing a whole lot of talent, level of competition, like a Brooks Baldwin, but knows how to play the game. And all of a sudden he's looking good. So I think like that's what I'm kind of thinking this draft might be, is trying to find the players who are good at things, but maybe just either haven't been able to build up the body of work because they're not playing in a top conference, or because they just hadn't been in the program that has been able to unlock the most out of their physical abilities.
If it was for me, if I was in the draft war room and it came down to Jack Caglione or Connor Griffin, I would be on the side of Connor Griffin, because if this is new staff that's coming in, you have new player development folks, you have a new director of player development. Connor Griffin has all the athleticism, all the tools that the White Sox have been seeking to radically change as far as the type of position players that they add to their farm system. He has all those tools. He just needs to hit better. He needs more experience facing better pitching than he saw in Mississippi in the high school ranks, where there are some games that I watched for him as his high school live streamed all the games and recorded them. There would be some games he didn't face a starting pitcher who threw faster than 80 miles an hour. So he didn't face quality pitching. So that's the great unknown with Connor Griffin. But if you're ever going to develop stars, and I think thanks to the excellent work from James Fegan doing a ride along with White Sox scouts, like that's the impression the White Sox employees have. Our boss is never going to sign Aaron Judge. So if we want an Aaron Judge type of player, we have to draft and develop that player to be a star like Aaron Judge. And at least with Connor Griffin, he gives you more time and gives you more avenues where he could be successful. Jack Caglione, I think, could be an excellent power hitter in Major League Baseball, but he is going to be a first baseman. I know the White Sox would push him out to right field, and I wouldn't blame them for trying that right away, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got to hit. And it's just like Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Vaughn's success.
Can you switch back to the draft stream? Because the picks are coming in now.
They are coming in. All right, excellent. I was trying to avoid all the commercials. And Cleveland, number 1 overall, takes Travis Bazzana. So there he is, the Aussie. He goes first overall. So it's on a delay. They don't see it yet. But the Cleveland Guardians do take Travis Bazzana first overall. I don't know what the sports books were thinking because they just lost millions of dollars. But yeah, Bazzana does go number 1 overall. He had an excellent season. This is history in the making. Bazzana is the first Australian ever to be selected in the first round of the Major League Baseball draft. And not just in the first round, he is the first to go first overall from Australia. So that is a big thing for that country and their baseball program as it continues to develop and popularity increases in Australia. Our friend down under, AJ Mitten, who lives in Melbourne, and he's a big White Sox fan. I'm sure he's a little disappointed that Bazzana is going to the Cleveland Guardians. But Jim, there you go. I'm 1 for 1 so far. I was a little scared that I was going to start 0 for 1, but Bazzana does go to Cleveland.
Yeah, I saw Weatherholt wearing the big cowboy hat early on and being like, oh, is that why the hat's there? Because he's going to be a first overall pick and in the room, but apparently not. But now that brings into the idea of like Weatherholt falling. What do you think?
It does. It does.
So how do you see that unfolding in terms of where Weatherholt could go? Because if Condon's maybe next, and then you have Burns going, like, what would you say?
So in my mock, I would have Weatherholt dropping all the way to 8 now to the Angels. The next legitimate spot would be pick number 4 to Oakland, which nobody has a good feel of what the Athletics are going to do. I asked Jim Callis, our best friend over at MLB.com, who's at MLB Network right now covering the draft, and he sent me a shrug emoji. No one's got a real good feel of what the Athletics are going to do at pick number 4. So I'm just guessing that they will make the decision for the White Sox and take Jack Caglianone because they're going to be moving to Sacramento and they're going to be moving to Vegas. So don't think so much how does this hitter fit with us in Oakland at the Coliseum? They'll be playing at a new stadium. That's a huge unknown for the Athletics.
That's kind of what I want to see. Like the way it unfolds within your draft, like where Cags is off the board and all of a sudden the White Sox don't have to make that decision. Then I think like it's a case of like, good. It's almost like when you have the a second pick and the draft comes down, whether it's, like I'm thinking of like the Odin Durant draft in basketball to where it's just like, it's definitely one of those 2 guys going top 2. You almost want the second one because all the scrutiny is off then because you didn't draft Greg Oden when Kevin Durant is there. You draft Kevin Durant because like Greg Oden was picked and what else are you going to do? So that's kind of how I kind of feel between those 2 players. Like if one of them's off the board, fine, because that means the decision was made for you. And there's a whole less, lot riding on like the individual, tug of war between the 2. Weatherholt's kind of interesting to me just because like the skill set's there. And as you've written about many times, like he was the likely, or maybe if not the majority 1-1 pick preseason, he was at least like the plurality 1-1 pick, and then he had the hamstring issue. But I think like the Angels, like I can't tell if he's a really smart pick for them there, or if it's just like a pick that contributes to their problems of never being able to have like all their good players on the field at one time.
Yeah, because the injury, right? And big shout out to the Athletic. They did an excellent job. They were able to get the Athletic training staff at West Virginia to provide more in-depth of what happened with Weatherholt. He suffered a grade 3 hamstring strain. At first, the training staff thought he blew out his ACL, which if he blew out his knee in April, this is a completely different conversation. JJ Weatherholt would not be going in the first round. So an excellent job. An excellent job by JJ Weatherholt to rehab and get himself back onto the field and play at a high level, not as high as he did last year, but he played well enough to help West Virginia upset in the NCAA regionals and get to super regionals thanks to his excellent defensive play. And that was where, again, one of our other friends, Mike Farron, part of MLB Network, MLB Radio, he called that regional for ESPN. And Mike convinced me, you got to watch the film, Josh, because I think Weatherholt could stick at shortstop. And after watching those games, I agree with Mike. Weatherholt can play shortstop. I have Weatherholt going to the Angels as Manfred right now is coming to the podium to make the announcement for Cincinnati. The expectation that this is going to be Charlie Condon. What?
Ooh.
Chase Burns is going to Cincinnati?
Ah. All right.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay. That's surprise number one. All right. So for those that are in playback watching along with us, Chase Burns this year, talented arm. My player comp for him is Dylan Cease. This is a big four-seam fastball, reaches up to 100 miles an hour. He pairs it with this sharp 90 to 91 mile per hour slider. I would not be surprised if a team like Cincinnati works with him to add a cutter to those two pitches to give a bit of a variation when he is attacking opposing hitters. He led the country in strikeouts with 191 strikeouts, but even more impressive, Chase Burns struck out 48.6% of the batters he faced. He's a very intense dude as well on the mound when he is going and rolling. When he had big strikeout performances this year, especially against Duke at home, he just lets out these primal screams, Jim. Like he gets super amped up and energized when he is on a roll. And for those that are watching the highlights right now of Chase Burns, you can just see him just how amped up that he gets. So that's the opposite of Dylan Cease, but the comp is there as far as the type of stuff. But now Charlie Condon, who won the Golden Spikes Award, which is the equivalent of the Heisman, and the Dick Hauser Award, which I'm a voter of the Dick Hauser Award, which is Player of the Year. And I voted Charlie Condon as Player of the Year. All of a sudden, Jim, Charlie Condon falls to the Colorado Rockies at pick 3, or at least he's available. And now I don't know. Now, okay, this is the fun part. Now I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So he had Colorado as a possibility for pitching. Oakland is a possibility for pitching. So does this mean like Hagen Smith now moves up?
He would be the next one.
Or would he be back of the top 10 still? I'm curious, like whether this changes the calculus for the teams that were interested in pitching before the White Sox. Because if two pitchers go in the top 5, then all of a sudden the field for the White Sox is a lot more open.
A lot more open. Wow. Okay, hold on. Let me collect my thoughts here because I agree with what they're saying on ESPN right now that this is a huge surprise. So going back to my mock, so I get the next 2 picks wrong here because I'm expecting it to flip here. But Jim, to your point, if Colorado now has a pivot, if they were sold, we must take starting pitching because we'll never, ever, ever sign a premier free agent starting pitcher to pitch at Coors. Then Hagen Smith from Arkansas, which I always felt was 1A, 1B between he and Burns is the best starting pitcher. I always felt that they're equal. One throws right-handed, the other throws left-handed. If they take Hagen Smith, who I have mocked to Kansas City at pick number 6, Charlie Condon and Jack Caglione are in the lap, along with J.J. Weatherholt for the Oakland A's, which means one of those 3 college bats will fall to the White Sox at pick number 5. I was expecting Burns to go this early, but not to pick number 2, to pick number 3 to Colorado. And again, I'm expecting the Rockies, Jim, to take Charlie Condon, who just led the country in home runs. And for him to play at Coors, I could see where the Rockies are salivating for that possibility, but I don't know yet.
But won't Chris Bryant force him off third?
That's my comp, though. Condon reminds me of Chris Bryant. I don't even know. I wonder if that's
is that like your subterfuge for getting Colorado off Condon?
No, not
You want
trying
Chris
to be
Bryant?
that mean. I'm not trying to be that mean, but
I would support it. 'Cause-
the thing about Condon is I'm not sold at him at third. The arm strength is just not there. You've seen it, Jim, when guys are lacking the arm strength at third base, especially when they make throws over to second to start double plays, they're not really throwing it. It seems like they're guiding the ball.
Mhm.
It just doesn't pop out of his hand. There's not a lot of velocity. And that's where I would be concerned on like slow dribblers or plays in front of Condon. Can he get to the ball? One, and two, does he have enough arm strength to throw somebody out at first on a close play like that? I'm not sold, but I'm expecting Rob Manfred to come up. And now let's see what the Rockies do as the Cincinnati Reds shock everyone. They took Chase Burns. All right, there
Okay.
you go. So Charlie Condon to Colorado.
That almost feels like the Chris Bryant draft, where Bryant was taken ahead of them, so they selected John Gray. And now it
Oh,
kind of feels
yes.
like the opposite, where like they were holding out for Bryant, and now they get like their third baseman who can be probably plugged in the lineup in 2 years.
Yeah, excellent hitter. Charlie Condon preseason was number one on my White Sox watch draft board. He had an excellent redshirt freshman season. So this is his redshirt sophomore season where he led the country with 37 home runs. He almost had the Triple Crown slash line for Division One. Charlie Condon led the country in batting average and slugging percentage. He finished behind his teammate Corey Collins, in on base percentage. Very talented hitter, especially pull side to center field. I'm not exactly sold on how much opposite field power that Charlie Condon is going to have, but he's 6'6", and when he barrels it up, it goes a long, long, long way. But one concern that people will have is, will Charlie Condon hit more than half of his home runs this year at home? Well, he's going to a very hitter-friendly team ballpark to Coors Field. And I'm sure he'll excel there. So that's a good pick for the Rockies. They add an impressive bat to Charlie Condon. The Rockies have a lot to go, but now the Oakland A's are on the board and they have a lot of possibilities. And we're getting pretty close here to what the White Sox will do. So the A's right now, they got JJ Weatherholt, Jack Caglione. There's been some talk about Nick Kurtz, the first baseman of Wake Forest. There's been some conversation about Brady Montgomery, the outfielder in Texas A&M. And we're just 2 picks away for the White Sox.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting reading the mock drafts, the final ones, and Braden Montgomery coming back into the picture for the White Sox with Jonathan Mayo, saying that even with I think Caglione was on the board, Smith, Griffin, all on the board, like all the White Sox favorites on the board, he went Montgomery.
Yeah, I haven't heard Montgomery. Montgomery, though, he had a good season at Texas A&M. He had a good college career. He was good at Stanford. Switch hitter, very strong arm in right field, and we all know about the White Sox woes in right field. There would be some people say, well, he was a two-way player. No, he wasn't. He was a worse pitcher than Jack Caglione, and I don't think Jack Caglione's much of a two-way player professionally. As the pitching mechanics, just Caglione lacks the consistency. Montgomery has a big arm, but just doesn't have the stuff. As Texas A&M quickly punted that possibility. But Montgomery, even though he's a switch hitter, he's far better batting left-handed than he is right-handed, just because he didn't see a lot of left-handed pitching this year. When he got a chance to face a premium left-handed pitcher, that was Hagen Smith at Arkansas, and Hagen Smith embarrassed Brady Montgomery, much like how Hagen Smith embarrassed Travis Bazzana, as Brady Montgomery went 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts.
I'm just hearing Bazzana talk. I've never actually heard him speak, so I wanted to hear the accent.
Huh?
Stoked.
He sounds like a dude from Sydney, Australia.
Yeah. The thing that's fascinating about Oakland's situation too is like, what are they doing the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Like location wise, I mean, Sacramento, it's been fascinating watching the environmental question come into effect with Sacramento having like record heats, like 110 degrees,
Right.
and no roof, no coverage, like just teams asking if they can play morning games and will the union allow that? Like it's so. Yeah, I'm just curious, like with everything so uncertain, like are they going to go with the highest certainty pick? Are they going to go with the cheapest pick? Are they going to like not come close to spending the 5% overage? I really don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's you raised really good points.
Questions. Like I don't know what they're going to do. Like in the draft, I don't know what they're going to do. Like overall, I don't know what they're doing at any point.
Yeah, and I think it was Tony Clark, to your point, that said that we need to have these conversations like yesterday, like before the Athletics announced that they were moving to Sacramento. But speaking of the Athletics, Commissioner Rob Manfred is currently right now at the podium. Wow. Nick Kurtz, the first baseman from Wake Forest, long rumored to be going to the Oakland A's, but a lot of people thought that rumor died in early June. But Oakland takes Nick Kurtz over Jack Caglione. So for the Chicago White Sox, who are on the clock right now, Jack Caglione, J.J. Weatherholt, Connor Griffin, and Hagen Smith are all on the board for the White Sox.
And Braden Montgomery, too, if we're throwing in all the mock players. So anybody who's everybody who has always been tied to the White Sox is in play. Which I don't know if this is the best case scenario or the worst case scenario. If you like your decision being made for you, the top 4 teams did the opposite of that.
Yeah, they sure did. I don't know what direction now the White Sox will go. What are your thoughts, Jim? I know I'm supposed to be the draft expert. I can break them all down for you, but like the White Sox also have to consider like what their strategies are because they have 2 additional picks tonight.
Robert Murray and Eric Longenhagen are saying Hagen Smith.
Hagen Smith.
Yes.
Hagen Smith would be the direction, and James Fegan and I talked about this in the last podcast episode. Best player available, best player that you could sign, and the best player you can develop. And Hagen Smith, I think, would fall to that third option. Part of me would be very happy that the White Sox draft Hagen Smith because I have so much film and I wrote thousands and thousands of words about Hagen Smith during the college season this year. So we have all the Hagen Smith coverage. But if the White Sox are going to be trading Garrett Crochet soon, yes, they have many pitchers in their farm system right now, but they don't have anyone that could be a frontline starter that could replace Garrett Crochet. I believe Hagen Smith does have that type of arsenal along with Noah Schultz. And because the White Sox do have a good track record in developing premium, dare we say, elite left-handed starting pitching, it would make sense for the White Sox to go with Hagen Smith because that's a for sure thing that they know that they can develop.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts is when it comes to drafting a pitcher in the first round, if they can get position players back with the Crochet or Fetty trades, assuming those are happening, then perhaps it is just kind of doing the Indiana Jones, like taking Crochet off and then putting Hagen Smith in there real quick and hoping that more or less, carry the same weight when the White Sox are looking to contend again. So there's that idea. The one thing I do wonder about, or just like the thing that came to me is just because I'm very primitive when it comes to my college baseball knowledge and just the White Sox track records. But I think, pitcher from Arkansas, Peyton Pallette. And then like he just hasn't really done much since he had Tommy John surgery. The return hasn't been smooth, but that's a big difference. But still, that's just where my primitive brain went was Peyton Pallette.
Yeah. With Pallette, though, he was supposed to be a first-round talent before he got hurt. The fastball velocity and the curveball were a good combination, but nothing like what Hagen Smith has. Hagen Smith, 97, 98 with the four-seamer. It is a three-quarter delivery, so it's a bit funky. The slider was just devastating, especially against left-handed batters this year. And he's got a couple variations to it. Much like how Carlos Rodon when he was with the White Sox, and that he had this sweeper that he could throw for strikes, and then for a strikeout pitch, he had more of the slider that spiked out and dropped out of the bottom part of the zone. For the longest of time, we've been told that Sox Machine, and even Jim Callis confirmed with the information that he's heard, that the White Sox were leaning towards taking a position player because their concern was in upcoming trades that they would just not be able to get top end position players in return for Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert, or Eric Fetty, because teams just holding on to their top position player prospects, that they would have to draft those position players if they wanted to add them to the farm system. I would be in favor of the White Sox drafting Hagen Smith, though, Jim, because, again, I think Hagen Smith could be a frontline starter. The White Sox have had, even this season, despite on how awful this season has been for the White Sox, I think that there have been enough improvements on the development front with pitchers where you could point to and say that whatever Brian Bannister is doing has been working.
Here we go. What? Yeah, I will say about Smith, I like him as a pitcher more than I like the position players left as position players. So in terms of like what they're supposed to do, I like his potential to make a smooth matriculation and have a spot in the White Sox rotation versus like hoping that Caglione's got the chase concerns don't transfer to the majors, that Griffin's swing has to be tweaked beyond the White Sox ability to do so. Same thing, Montgomery being kind of just corner outfield only. Like, I like Smith's possibility of reaching his top end better than the position players doing the same.
Absolutely. And that might have been part of the decision-making process with the White Sox in the war room. In the end, who can we actually develop? And if they're, by taking Hagen Smith, to me, and this would be a question for like Paul Janisch and Josh Barfield, the guys who are supposed to be responsible for the position player development, and we'll see what the White Sox do with their second round picks later tonight. Like, where is the confidence right now in developing position players? Because I'm with you, Jim. And Brian Bannister now, Hagen Smith, this is going to be awesome. Like, I have little doubt that Hagen Smith is going to pan out for the Chicago White Sox. And I think White Sox fans should be excited about the team adding another quality starting pitcher like Hagen Smith into the farm system. But for White Sox fans at the same time, though, throw their arms up and be like, what are we doing the position player side?
Or throwing
Jim,
up. They might throw
right.
up and say what
are
they doing.
Throwing up. Yeah. They're right. They're right. What are the White Sox going to do on the position player side?
Well, as Clinch notes in the playback chat, you don't need bats when you have Benintendi, another Arkansas guy, right?
He sure was. Woo, pigs. But yes, ESPN sharing the stats. Hagen Smith, as I mentioned, Chase Burns led the country in strikeouts and in strikeout rate. Hagen Smith was 0.2 of a percentage point behind Chase Burns. Smith struck out 48.4% of the batters he faced. We have tons of video on our YouTube channel of Hagen Smith this year. Jack Caglione, Brady Montgomery, and Travis Bazzana this season against Hagen Smith combined went 0 for 9 with 6 strikeouts. Like, Hagen Smith dominated the three of the top college bats in this draft. And now for Kansas City, I guess we can hang back here because they got Jack Caglione, they got JJ Weatherhold, they got Connor Griffin, they got Bryce Renier, all these guys on their draft board. But maybe I should just trust in my gut. We've been hearing for so long, position players. But But part of me covering college baseball this year, Jim, my heart warms to see Chase Burns and Hagen Smith selected in the top 5, because outside of Charlie Condon and Travis Bazzana, really did feel like Hagen Smith and Chase Burns deserved to be part of the conversation of player of the year, because I thought they had really special seasons. Even if they were in last year's draft class, I felt like they would be number 2 and number 3 in the starting pitching ranks behind Paul Skeens. And to see them both go in the top 5 and the White Sox being able to get Hagen Smith, I think this is a good first round pick for the White Sox.
I'm also curious, if he was not tied to the White Sox, 5th, and I think Mike Shirley probably might be the mock drafters white whale when it comes to just trying to figure out what's this guy doing every first round. They seem to be shocked by what he does. So there's that. Sorry, I just heard Chris Sale mention. So yeah, it's when it comes to bumping him up. Yeah, when it comes to just Mike Shirley's track record and such, like if Smith is a surprise, is there a discount, and what does that discount allow Shirley to do in subsequent rounds?
That's a good question. Yeah, because now it's pick 43 and pick 68 for the White Sox. Pick 43. I've been trying to come up with ideas of what they could do on the high school front as far as buying out some of the high school prospects. But as I mentioned, while I clearly was on mute, as Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, is going to the podium to announce who the Kansas City Royals take. So I'll keep my thought for one moment. Okay, there you go. So Jack Caglione goes to the Royals.
With Vinny Pasquantino. Hey!
Loading up on the Italians. My mock is completely ruined. At least I got the number 1 pick right. But St. Louis is now on the board. JJ Weatherholt is still available. Connor Griffin is still available. Bryce Rainier is still available. So we'll see what the Cardinals do. The Cardinals are hoping that either Chase Burns or Hagen Smith drop to them, because they were looking to add younger starting pitching to their rosters. They are quite old on the starting pitching front. But we have a lot to do on Sox Machine to cover with the White Sox taking Hagen Smith with the first round at pick number 5. Fantastic misdirection. So for those in the comment section at Sox Machine that were like, I still feel like the White Sox are going to take a pitcher, bravo to you. Excellent job calling that. I am mad at every source that I have now for telling me that the White Sox are a lean position player. So great misdirection, but the White Sox add another talented starting pitcher to their farm system, and now we'll see what they do at picks 43 and pick 68. But
good news is for your coverage, like we already have photos of Hagen Smith in the system and videos on YouTube. So I will have a very easy job when it comes to putting together the post I'm about to write.
Yes, no joke. Thousands of words tracking and how Hagen Smith was doing this season for Arkansas as Jim starts that. And we'll have more coverage as well on the Sox Machine podcast that'll be released tomorrow morning, as James Fegan will be trying to get into the Zoom and get a chance to talk to Hagen Smith and the White Sox about their thought process. We'll have all that coverage on the Sox Machine podcast on Monday morning. But thank you guys so much for joining us for this draft watch party, as we'll see how the rest of the first round unfolds and see how the second round unfolds. You can follow us on social media. We're at Sox Machine. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. And of course, visit us at SoxMachine.com for the live draft thread. Alongside Jim Margulis, the managing editor of SoxMachine.com, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for watching the 2024 Major League Baseball Draft Watch Party.